Beneath the sands of Egypt lie 25 granite containers, each weighing 100 tons. No engineer alive can fully explain how they were made. In India, an iron pillar has stood in the open air for 16 centuries without rusting, while modern steel surrenders in years. In Iraq, they found a battery assembled 2,000 years before Volta built his. These objects do not fit into textbooks because the people who wrote the textbooks never saw them. Today we are going to examine 7 real ancient artifacts. Each one sits in a real museum, each one you can touch with your own hands, and each one breaks everything you thought you knew about the past. We start with the heaviest mystery on Earth in the most literal sense of the word. Egypt. Saqqara. The year is 1850. French archaeologist Auguste Mariette spotted a stone sphinx poking out of the sand northwest of the step pyramid of Djoser. He dug further and uncovered an entire avenue of sphinxes leading to the entrance of an underground structure. When his team tried to enter, they had to use dynamite because the passages had been sealed shut from the inside. Behind the stone walls, they found a labyrinth of long tunnels carved directly into the bedrock limestone. In the largest gallery, lining both sides of the corridor, stood 25 colossal boxes cut from black and pink granite. Each box measures 4 meters long, 2.5 meters wide, and 3 1/3 meters tall. The lid alone weighs 30 tons. The total mass of each container approaches 100 tons. That is the weight of a fully loaded railway freight car, hidden inside a cramped underground niche. When Mariette cracked one open using explosives, he found nothing inside except emptiness and mirror-smooth walls. Mainstream archaeology calls this place the Serapeum and claims it was used to bury sacred Apis bulls. The problem is that not a single open box has ever yielded bull remains or any trace of mummification. What they did find was something far more unsettling than any mummy: precision that should not exist. Christopher Dunn, an engineer with 49 years of experience in high-precision manufacturing, measured the interior surfaces of 2 boxes using an industrial straight edge accurate to 2/10,000ths of an inch. The walls were flat to a tolerance achievable only on modern computer-controlled milling machines. The corners held exactly 90 degrees with an inner radius of just 4 millimeters. When Dunn approached an American precision manufacturing firm about reproducing one of these boxes from a single block of granite, they told him flatly that even with an unlimited budget, they would have to assemble it from 6 separate slabs. The ancient builders carved each container from a single monolith quarried at Aswan, 500 miles from Saqqara. Most of the boxes are made from stone rated 6.5 on the Mohs hardness scale. Some are diorite, which is even harder. The tunnels are so narrow that 2 people can barely pass each other. How 100-ton blocks were turned at right angles in those corridors and lowered into niches with only 40 centimeters of clearance on each side remains unanswered. There is simply no room for levers, rollers, or work crews. One unfinished box still sits abandoned in the middle of a tunnel, as if the builders walked away in the middle of the job and never came back. And here is the detail that haunts engineers most. Crude hieroglyphs scratched onto the outer surfaces contrast violently with the polished perfection inside, as if the inscriptions were carved by completely different people thousands of years after the boxes themselves were made. If you feel like most channels tell history too flat, subscribe to Discovery Journals. We dig where the textbooks stop, and tell us in the comments, why would anyone need surgical precision for a bull's coffin? From the underground galleries of Egypt, we move to the floor of the Mediterranean Sea. In 1901, Greek sponge divers were caught in a storm near the island of Antikythera. The captain sent a diver down to pass the time, and the man surfaced in a panic, screaming about dead bodies 60 meters below. The captain went down himself and found not a graveyard, but the wreck of a Roman ship that sank around 65 BCE. The dead bodies were marble statues buried in sand for 2,000 years. Among the sculptures and scattered coins lay an unremarkable lump of corroded bronze. For 2 years, it gathered dust in a crate at the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, until a politician named Spiridon Stais noticed a crack in the surface. Inside, a gear wheel glinted, tiny, perfectly cut. Inside an object over 2,000 years old, newspapers screamed sensation, skeptics screamed forgery. but CT scanning in the early 2000s settled the argument forever. Inside lay a system of 37 interlocking bronze gears. The largest measured 13 centimeters across, with 223 teeth. The device, no bigger than a modern laptop, calculated the positions of the sun, the moon, and the 5 known planets. It predicted solar and lunar eclipses, it tracked the cycles of the Olympic Games, and displayed the phases of the moon in real time. European science did not match this level of astronomical calculation for another 1500 years. The mechanism even accounted for the fact that the moon speeds up and slows down at different points in its elliptical orbit. To model this, the builders installed 2 gears mounted on offset axes, creating what is functionally a differential, the same mechanical principle that allows the wheels of your car to rotate at different speeds when you turn a corner. The gear teeth are cut with a uniformity impossible to achieve with a hand file. Inscriptions on the back panel, only recently made legible through advanced imaging, turned out to be a detailed user manual. Researchers at University College London called the original device the work of a genius who merged Babylonian astronomical data with the mathematics of Plato's Academy. Whoever built this instrument understood the cosmos at a level the rest of humanity would not reach for another 20 centuries. And the Roman orator Cicero described similar devices built by Archimedes in Syracuse, which means the Antikythera mechanism was not unique. It belonged to an entire tradition of which only one example survived. The Greeks packed the sky into a bronze box. Around the same era, Indian blacksmiths conquered iron. In the courtyard of the Quwwat-ul-Islam Mosque in Delhi stands a pillar 7 meters tall, weighing over 6 tons. A Sanskrit inscription links it to King Chandragupta II of the Gupta dynasty, placing it in the 5th century. For 16 centuries, this pillar has stood in the open under monsoon rains and scorching heat, and it has almost no rust. Ordinary iron in Delhi's climate develops heavy corrosion within years. The Eiffel Tower has to be repainted every 7 years. In the 18th century, a cannonball struck the pillar and it held, leaving nothing but a dent 4 meters up. Scientists tried to solve the mystery starting in 1912 when British chemists first took samples. The answer came 91 years later when Professor Balesi Subramaniam at the Indian Institute of Technology in Kanpur published his findings. His team used X-ray diffraction, electrochemical testing, and microscopy to finally understand what was happening on the surface of the metal. The iron contains roughly 1% phosphorus with almost no sulfur or manganese. This composition triggers the formation of a crystalline iron phosphate layer just a 50th of a millimeter thick. This layer acts as an invisible self-healing shield, repairing its own cracks with every cycle of wetting and drying. The ancient smiths essentially created a natural equivalent of stainless steel 15 centuries before stainless steel was invented. They achieved it through forge welding, heating, and hammering the iron in a way that preserved the phosphorus content, without instruments and without textbooks. Modern metallurgy has still not exactly replicated the combination of composition and durability found in this pillar. 6 tons of iron, not a single gram of paint, standing in the open and winning a battle that our entire industrial civilization keeps losing. Indians mastered iron. Romans in the 4th century mastered light. In the British Museum behind armored glass sits the Lycurgus Cup, the only complete surviving example of dichroic glass from antiquity. When light falls on the front, the cup glows jade green. When light passes through from behind, it blazes ruby red. The surface is carved with a scene from myth, King Lycurgus tangled in grapevines while the god Dionysus watches him die. The carving uses a technique called cage cup, where thick glass is cast and then cut away to leave a latticed shell. But the color shifting trick is hidden not in the carving, but in the molecular structure of the glass itself. The answer came in the 1990s when fragments of similar Roman glass were examined under an electron microscope. Embedded inside were particles of a gold-silver alloy roughly 50 nanometers across, 1,000 times smaller than a grain of salt. When light strikes these particles, the metal electrons oscillate and shift the wavelength. Silver produces the green reflection, gold produces the red transmission. This effect is called localized surface plasmon resonance, and today it is used in advanced sensors and holographic technology. Roman craftsmen ground gold and silver down to particles invisible to the naked eye and fused them into glass at a ratio of about 70 parts per million. Researchers at Cambridge only managed to reproduce a comparable effect in 2014 by creating arrays of 16 million nanoparticles per square millimeter. The Romans achieved the same result 16 centuries earlier without microscopes, without lasers, and without a single textbook on optics. The manufacturing secret died with the empire, and the Lycurgus Cup remains the sole intact witness. Today, scientists are trying to apply this ancient principle to build ultra-sensitive detectors for water contamination. A technology born for a banquet table may save millions of lives 17 centuries after its invention. Hit that like button if any of this is changing what you thought about the ancient world, and tell us in the comments, which country are you watching from? Romans manipulated light. Their contemporaries in the East may have manipulated electricity. In 1936, during railway construction near Baghdad, workers broke into an ancient burial site near the ruins of Ctesiphon, the capital of the Parthian Empire. Among the finds was a clay jar 14 centimeters tall with a copper cylinder inside. At the center of the cylinder hung an iron rod, suspended without touching the walls, and the mouth was sealed with a bitumen plug. Wilhelm Koenig, director of the National Museum of Iraq, immediately recognized the structure of a galvanic cell. Two metals with different electrochemical potentials were separated by a space for a liquid electrolyte. Corrosion traces on the walls indicated the presence of an acid, most likely vinegar or grape juice. American scientist Willard Gray built an exact replica and filled it with grape juice. The device produced electrical current. A single jar could generate roughly 1 volt. Several connected together could produce enough current for electroplating gold onto jewelry. Similar vessels were found at nearby Seleucia alongside bronze and iron needles. The Roman physician Scribonius Largus in the 1st century described treating gout by pressing an electric ray fish against a patient's feet. The idea of using electricity for medicine was known to the ancient world long before science gave it a name. The Baghdad battery predates Volta's official invention by at least 16 centuries. In 2003, it was stolen from the museum during the invasion of Iraq, and its fate remains unknown. We lost what may be the oldest electrical device in human history, and we cannot even run a modern analysis on it. Back to Egypt, but this time to an object that fits on a dining table and looks like it belongs in a machine shop. In that same year, 1936, archaeologist Walter Emery opened the tomb of an official named Sabu in the Saqqara necropolis. Beside the skeleton lay a cracked stone disc 61 centimeters across. It was carved from metasilt stone, a brittle rock that splits apart at the slightest careless impact. 3 curved blades converge on a central hub, and viewed from above the disc, is indistinguishable from an industrial pump impeller. The tomb dates to approximately 5,000 years ago, during the First Dynasty, when tools were made from stone and soft copper. How anyone carved thin, curving blades from a rock that crumbles at a wrong touch, with no visible fractures, remains unexplained. An enthusiast printed a 3-dimensional replica and mounted it inside a housing with a shaft. When spun, the copy pumped water with impressive force, functioning exactly like a classical centrifugal impeller. Without a housing, the spinning disc created a powerful water vortex strong enough to rule out coincidence of form. Engineers at Airbus also printed copies and confirmed the aerodynamic properties, though the disc could not have served as an air propeller. Egyptologist Cyril Aldred noted that the disc's shape suggests it was a stone copy of a metal original, one far older than the tomb itself. If the Sabu disc is truly a model of a lost mechanism, we are looking at a trace of engineering knowledge that vanished before recorded history began. 5,000 years ago, someone in the Nile Valley understood how to move water using centrifugal force. Then, that knowledge dissolved into the sand along with the name of the person who invented it. And the final artifact does not hide underground. It stands in plain sight before thousands of tourists every day outside the Chinese city of Xi'an. In 1974, farmers digging a well struck fragments of a clay figure. That accident launched the discovery of the Terracotta Army, more than 8,000 life-size warriors molded from fired clay. Every figure stands at human height. No two faces are identical, and the heads were built from just 8 base molds, then individually finished. They guard the tomb of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor to unite China, whose burial complex required 700,000 laborers to build. Less than 1% of the complex has been excavated, but the real sensation was not the statues, it was their weapons. More than 40,000 bronze arrowheads, swords up to 95 centimeters long, spears, and crossbow mechanisms were pulled from the pits. After 2,200 years underground, the blades gleamed as if forged yesterday, and the edges remained sharp. For 4 decades, scientists believed the secret was a chromium coating, since traces of chromium were found on the bronze. Chromium plating was not patented in Europe until the 20th century, and the finding seemed impossible. Then a joint study by University College London and the Museum of the Terracotta Army in 2019 overturned the theory entirely. The chromium turned out to be contamination from lacquer used to coat the wooden handles and bamboo shafts. It had nothing to do with preserving the bronze itself. The real secret lay in the alloy's high tin content and the unique properties of the local soil. The alkaline loess around Xi'an, with its fine particles and low organic content, created a perfect preservation environment. Replica bronze pieces buried in the same soil emerged untouched after 4 months of accelerated testing. Identical samples buried in British soil corroded heavily in the same period. The craftsmen of the Qin dynasty, 2,200 years ago, matched alloy to environment in a combination that worked as a flawless preservative. They did not know the words electrochemistry or alkaline corrosion, but the result of their work has outlasted every empire that came after them. 40,000 blades lay in the dark and waited, like an order that was never revoked. Which of these 7 artifacts stunned you the most? Tell us in the comments. We have walked through the underground labyrinths of Egypt and descended to the Mediterranean seabed. We stood before an iron pillar in Delhi and looked inside a Roman cup where nanoparticles dance in the light. We held a battery that is 2,000 years old and spun a stone turbine 5,000 years older than the Industrial Revolution. Every one of these objects is documented, cataloged, and sitting in a museum you can visit tomorrow. None of them require aliens. But every single one demands that we accept an uncomfortable truth. Our ancestors possessed knowledge that we are only now rediscovering and calling breakthroughs. They may have simply called it craft. Progress may not be a straight line upward. It may be a spiral where each turn begins from the same ignorance. The real mystery is not how they did it. It is why we forgot. Subscribe to Discovery Journals and turn on notifications. We go where the textbooks end. We will see you in the next one.